Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Marked. I am Jason and I am back on the historic National Road in Ohio, and I just picked up from where I left off in Springfield about 6 months ago, and now I'm headed eastward into Columbus all throughout the entire state of Ohio. Then I'll be hoping to reach the end by the end of this trip. But I'm doing another not compilation, but a series of towns before I hit Columbus. And the first one I'm hitting is South Vienna. But before I go there and all the other towns in this episode, I'm staying outside the Buena Vista Tavern, which dates back to 1836. Yep, it's been sitting here all this time. And unfortunately, I don't know any recent history of this place, but there is a marker here that was put up by the Ohio National Road Association. So let's take a look. All right, so that is Route 40. It is a divided highway, and you can go 60 miles an hour. Or 70, I guess, I don't know. That is Buena Vista Road. I don't know where it takes you. So, like I said, this old building dates back to 1836. And before I take a look at the property, I'm just going to go ahead and take a look at I'm just going to check out the marker here. All right, again, it's the Buena Vista Tavern, and it's under the heading 19th and early 20th century travel accommodations. Built in 1836, this operated as an inn from 1849 to 1856, when it became a private residence. In 1930, it returned to public life as a tourist camp with cabins or cottages located behind the old inn. The Buena Vista Tavern is again serving the public as a retail establishment. Inns and taverns were once common along the National Road. A traveler could expect to find accommodations about every 10 miles. Stage houses were inns where stage horses were stabled and exchanged, and passengers found room and board. Drovers' inns were generally simpler frame structures and were often located on side streets of pike towns, parallel to the National Road, or on the outskirts of town where they could accommodate pens for livestock. The house and property across from the Buena Vista Tavern was used by the drovers. Okay, so here's this is an undated photo. But obviously a lot has changed since then. Like, I don't even know what's behind that fence. And here's another retro picture, but this one dates to the 1930s. This was sponsored by the Philip P. Johnson family. So again, I don't know the recent history of this place, but I look at the sign over here, and maybe there was something here. Johnson's something. Okay, it's not really telling me very much. I don't want to tear down that tarp or anything, although I'm very tempted to. But I even Googled it, and yeah, I get nothing. But I'm going to go ahead and get up closer to the building. Some doors. And there's nobody here because I'm the only person that's parked here, but I see candles lit up. I mean, not real candles, but you know, the electronic candles all lit up. And unfortunately, yeah, I can't get any information. But they do have Google. They have that camera, or whatever you call it, the Ring. And something got, oh, that looks like a flag, I guess. But yeah. And here's just the front of the tavern, and unfortunately, because like I said, you can go pretty fast on Highway 40 or the National Road, and you can pretty much blink and you'll miss it unless you're looking for this. Now, before I get to Columbus, I'll be going through at least 3 towns. I'll be going through South Vienna, Lafayette, and West Jefferson, as there are some historic places to see in the latter 2 towns. But in South Vienna, now let me give you a little backstory. It was originally called Vienna, and it's got over 1,000 people. But what really got me curious is, see, I'm a fan of the TV show Survivor. Yes, the reality show. And the guy that won Survivor Vanuatu, which is season 9, Chris Daugherty, he is originally from there, and I don't know if he still lives there or not. Unfortunately, I mean, he's one of those guys where, you know, he took the $1 million and he faded off the radar. Like, he doesn't really keep, like, he's not on any social media. He's pretty much disappeared off the face of the earth, which is maybe a good or bad thing. But he was one of my favorite Survivor players, and it's one of those small towns where you would never expect a famous reality show contestant or winner to be from. But he's, like I said, he's not involved in the Survivor community in any way. So I probably wouldn't even recognize him if he were to come up to me if I were to stop in that town. But this is the only historic place near and or around South Vienna. So I'm going to go ahead and head east on the National Road. All right, now I'm in Lafayette, Ohio. And this is one of two historic places on the old National Road, or National Pike. Now, as you head into town, you'll see signs as Route 40 as the National Pike. That's another nickname for the National Road, among many others, like Cumberland Road. This is the Anderson House. And I don't know if somebody lives here or if, yeah, or if it's being used as something else. But I mean, it's decorated well nicely, and they're advertising for a roof, OhioRoof.com. In 1837, when the National Road was completed through Madison County, the village of Lafayette was platted by William Minter, and this building was a tavern that served travelers. The Red Brick Tavern, which was built after the Anderson House, was located 1/4 mile east. We'll be going that way pretty soon. Both taverns were built by Stanley Watson, a Minter family son-in-law who operated the Red Brick Tavern. As traffic increased along the National Road, 8 to 10 stagecoaches plus drovers' herds and various other travelers passed through Lafayette daily. There were four taverns in Lafayette to serve them. So this Federal-style house with its later Greek Revival-style porch had 4 chimneys and 8 fireplaces. On the first floor, the 2 rooms on the front and back on the left side of the front door had an opening 8 feet wide. With the doors open, they were used as a large dining room. The east side rooms had a separate entrance and were used as a bar room. The third floor was a large dormitory room which had no heat. In the 1920s, the house was converted to a tourist home. Here's a more modern picture of it as we see it today. And here's a little bit more information on it. In its nearly 200 years, this building has served as a tavern, a farmhouse, and a tourist home. The house was built around 1830 for Calvin Anderson. So that'll be 6 years from now, it'll be 200 years this was built. Okay, this is 2024 as I'm doing this video. 1848, the tavern was sold to R.G. and P.W. Morris, who sold it in 1850 to Valentine Wilson. The 400-acre property was then operated for 40 years as Oak Grove Farm by Wilson's son Hamilton. And then the Wilson Farm was illustrated in the 1875 Atlas of Madison County, as it looked like this. And there's just a little bit more local history, but I'm going to go ahead and skip all that. But going to get one last look at the Anderson House, and then the Red Brick Tavern is about 600 feet away, according to the historical marker database. So that's where I'm headed. And now we are at the Red Brick Tavern. Now this place is so historical that 6 U.S. presidents have been here. And it says on the marker, and it's also an operating restaurant to this day. Let's go check it out. Okay, the Red Brick of yesteryear. I'm not really sure about the history of that. Maybe it'll say on the marker. But yeah. Oh yeah, there it is right there, the marker. But yeah, this is open. I mean, not right now, but it opens later at 4 p.m. today. It's got good reviews on Google and Yelp. Apparently they got a really good prime rib sandwich, but fortunately it's like 9 a.m. in the morning as I'm doing this. But all right, wow, really cool courtyard too. All right, but here is one about the Red Brick Tavern. It's a classic roadside inn and tavern from the heyday of the National Road. Constructed between 1836 and 1837, it was in operation when the road was completed in front of the building. Brick used in the building was made from local clay, and wood used for the interior trim came from Zanesville, which I think it's about 100 miles, well, not even 100 miles from here east, but we'll be going there later in this trip. But the main section of the building faced the highway with a narrower wing extending back along a side street. giving it a reversed L appearance. The first floor housed a dining room and kitchen with 12 rooms on the second floor for overnight travelers. 4 rooms were on the private 3rd floor. And then here's the part where it talks about the presidents. Over the years, the Red Brick Tavern was a popular place for travelers along the historic National Road in Ohio. Again, 6 presidents were hosted here, starting with John Quincy Adams, Martin Van Buren, William Henry Harrison, who is a native Ohioan, or was, sorry, John Tyler, Zachary Taylor, and another native Ohioan, and I think the most recent president who was from Ohio, Warren G. Harding, very fittingly. And then here's a retro picture from 1933. You can just tell by the car there. And I'm gonna go see what's behind here. And this looks like one of those old mile markers. If I can read it. Let's see. Cumberland is, I'm pretty sure it says Cumberland, but I can't read the number, unfortunately. Okay, I can't really see anything on this side. And unfortunately, this side's very hard to read too, but Columbus, I think it, I want to say it says 11 miles, but I don't know that for sure. Columbus is not 11 miles from here, I'll tell you that. It's about maybe 22. But yeah, very nice. And so this town looks pretty historical. Like, that's an antique shop called Hills 1936. I don't know if it's been open that long. There's an old church. Yeah, it's basically one of those towns where you blink and you miss it, I'm sorry to say. But while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and give you a frontal view. Since there's nobody coming, I'm in the middle of the road here. But again, 1837, and this place does open for business. Just go online and check for hours, because what I told you earlier probably does not apply, but who knows. And I don't know what that building is right there. It looks like an old school that is abandoned, but I don't know that for sure. But on the side of the building it says BSA. When I think of BSA, I think of Boy Scouts of America. I'll have to look that up sometime when I get home. All right, now to West Jefferson. Okay, now I'm in West Jefferson, and I'm in the historic downtown. This is Main Street, which is also the National Road. And as I've said in my previous videos, Main Street and the National Road go hand in hand because, yeah, basically the National Road, because of it being the first and the grand of all roads, it's naturally served as the main street for several towns. Now this town, West Jefferson, is 4,137 people, but despite that, it calls itself a village. There's a marker up ahead, but there's also a new mile marker. This is not one of them old school ones. On the back it says 2014, so that was 10 years ago. But I think it's pretty cool that they paid tribute to the National Road doing this. So Cumberland, Maryland, where it all began, 272 miles. Wheeling, West Virginia, 142 miles. Columbus, 14 miles. All 3 of those places I'm planning on going on this trip. And then Springfield, where I was 6 months ago, 29 miles. And this is in front of the family practice. And here is the City Hall for West Jefferson. I've seen a lot of classic red brick buildings in this town, or village rather, so, and fittingly they put the marker right here, the Ohio National Road Association. In 1831, Congress passed a bill appropriating money for the extension of the Cumberland Road through Ohio, Indiana, and Illinois. 1836 to 1837, this great national road was completed through Madison County. At the beginning of the 19th century, hardly a single road could be found in Madison County. For years after the county was organized, roads were merely wagon tracks through forests and prairies that followed Indian trails. When the settlement of Hampton discovered that the National Road was passing about a quarter mile to the north, the village moved to what is now the town site of West Jefferson, using roller logs to move their barns and houses. The new Pike town that resulted from the construction of the National Road, or National Pike, was named in honor of President Thomas Jefferson, the prefix West being added later by the Post Office Department. And yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that, and very fitting that this town is partly named after Thomas Jefferson, because yes, he's the one that took action on the National Road, the first of many presidents. But this was incorporated as a town in 1833, and with the construction of the National Road, grew to about 300 inhabitants, 5 taverns, a large horse barn used by the stagecoaches, a general store, a blacksmith, and 2 water-powered sawmills. By 1844 to 1845, there were 5 hotels and a wagon-making shop. Merchants traveled the National Road by stagecoach, which ran 3 to 5 daily coaches in each direction, connecting to eastern markets in Boston and New York City to purchase goods that were shipped by canal to Columbus, and then westward by 4 and 6 horse teams pulling freight wagons. Situated on the edge of the Darby Plain, some of the most fertile farmland in Ohio, the region grew as a result of the National Road. 2 slaughterhouses were located nearby and furnished much of the dressed meats for the Columbus market. Alright, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked. I hope I showed you some cool stuff and hope you learned some new stuff about the historic National Road in this section of Ohio. I went through 3 towns and showed you some very important buildings that are still standing importantly. And unfortunately, a lot of stuff has vanished, came and went, but I'm happy to show you what I was able to find. And I'm glad the Ohio National Road Association has definitely done their part in putting up markers and all that. But I will see you guys in the big city Columbus. Here we go. All right, sign off.